People. Welcome to the Stitch People podcast. I'm Lizzie Bean, your host and the founder of Stitch People, where our goal with cross-stitching is to inspire your personal creativity, and our goal with podcasting is to help you make some new friends while you're at it. Today's episode is so much fun. I was not expecting this when I hopped into this conversation, but we have such a great crossover, Summer and I, of interests. Summer is a full-time RVer. I don't mean to spoil the surprise, but I'm obsessed with it. It's something Spencer and I sort of dream about and idolize. So much fun to live out on the road. She tells us all about it and all about how it works for her and her family and all about how crafting works sort of within this type of lifestyle on the road. It is so inspiring and so exciting and fun and just makes me want to get out and go somewhere new. Hopefully you too. I don't mean to give you a travel bug, but fair warning, that's what's going to happen today. So without delaying it any further, let's hear from Summer. Hello. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for your time. I'm so excited to get to know you and to chat with you. It is always a treat to meet someone new from the Stitch People community. So it's exciting. Where are you calling in from today?
Well, from today, quite literally today, I am in Cecil, Georgia, but that's for tonight.
I love that. It looks like I'm on this Zoom call. It looks like you're in an RV. I'm only now realizing.
Yes, we travel full time in our RV. So that's why, tonight we're just in Cecil. But yeah, we travel since January. We have been in our fifth wheel RV traveling all over the country.
OMG, Summer, we aren't going to talk about Stitch People very much. I can tell you that. That is so cool. Spencer and I have an RV. We're super fans of it. We acquired another small business that's based in southern Maine that we knew about through my family. Anyway, so 2018, the first summer we're transitioning kind of ownership. We have 3 dogs. And so we're like, how do we spend a significant portion of time in Maine and not overwhelm our family members who are there? So we got an RV and we drove across the country and we lived in our RV for 4 months. And then we did it again the next summer. And then we skipped a summer. I think COVID just made it weird. And then we did it. We did it again this summer. We went out for a month and staying across the way. So that's something I'm totally impressed by and totally into, because every time we stay in our RV, we're like, we should go full time. This is great. So when did you so you said January was when you made the transition. So, tell me that whole story. How did you decide to do it?
I'm not sure. The why is I don't know. No, so it's me and my husband, and then we have 2 kids who are 8 and 10. And then don't tell my husband I told you, because he always, people think we're crazy. We also have 3 dogs and 2 cats with us.
I love that. We have 3 dogs. I don't think that's crazy.
Yeah, but we're on the road with them. So that's why we're in the fifth wheel.
I'm sure it gets cozy.
That's why we're in the fifth wheel. So we were in Wilmington, North Carolina, which is East Coast US, at the beach. And Wilmington is physically a very small place. It's only really, made to accommodate a finite amount of people.
Sure.
But because there are, 3 beaches there, the population itself just is rapidly expanding. And it just got to the point where when COVID hit, I've been remotely working for 3 or 4 years. Anyway, I do corporate contracts for pharmaceutical research. So, my legal work has just all been online, not a big deal. My husband was a criminal defense attorney. So when COVID shut down the court system, essentially, he couldn't do anything, for basically all of last year.
Oh my gosh. And I had not even considered that part of things shutting down. Whoa.
Yeah, they didn't have any trials. There were no in-person trials.
You can't sit next to a jury. You can't sit. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so he was having to do, he did some video call, he did some of the, filings and things like that. But essentially his business was basically on hold.
Right.
And the kids went virtual for school. We finally got to the point where we figured, if we can't go anywhere but these 4 walls, why not make these 4 walls move? Basically, because we've been kind of weekend warriors for a while.
Okay, so. So you, would you go out very far or just kind of where you could get to in a weekend? Did you have like favorite
basically. I
destinations?
mean, we would do kind of, long weekends, holiday weekends. We did, there's a really great campground in Tabor City, North Carolina called Daddy Joe's. It's one of the Jellystone parks.
Ooh.
So they're based off of, just like Jellystone, Yogi Bear and all that. It's a franchise, a national franchise. So they've got, the pools and the hay rides and all the holiday celebrations, and the kids loved it. So we've been doing that for years. And then we did a couple of longer trips. Like we went fall break to Atlanta 2 years ago, I guess, and stayed at Stone Mountain for about a week and a half.
Gorgeous.
And the kids loved doing that. And so we went to Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg area last year, around, I guess, end of August, early September.
Okay.
And just to kind of see what it would be like to stay out longer, longer at a time. And it was actually easier to be out longer because you're not pushing, you're not like having to gather everything up, load it on, then unpack it and all that. That was really obnoxious. So it was actually easier to stay longer than it was for a weekend because you didn't have duplicates everywhere you went, both at the house and in the camper. So my husband's been wanting to do this for years. Mama doesn't camp. I don't tent camp. I don't camp. I glamp. So as you can see, I am a 43-foot long fifth wheel, that has a 4 TVs and a ceiling fan and 2 air conditioners. So I was like, okay,
but
fine.
that's kind of a great compromise, best of both worlds, because your husband, and it sounds like your kids like to be in the outdoors. They like these outdoors locations. So they get to go out and about, and you can also be totally comfortable with, creature comforts and not have to feel like you're giving up too much. So you said 43 feet. So does that have do you have like a master kind of little bedroom area and a bedroom for the kids? Is that kind of a layout?
Yes. It's the one that we're in. It's actually called a J-Code North Point.
Okay.
It's a 377 MLBH, which means it's 377 square feet total. It's actually the most popular model for full-timing families.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's got a mid-bunk area. So like when you walk in the door, you can see like where I am right now, they're opposing slides. So you've got kitchen on this side. So, like that's the pantry door there. And then there's like a residential fridge behind me.
And they slide out the sides and give you more room.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you've got the back of it. We had a full-size couch, which we've now taken out for a desk. That's where I work. That's where I'm sitting right now. And then on one side, you've got a set of 2 recliners and the dining room table. Nice. And then, of course, the other side is the kitchen. And then the middle bunk has it came with a pull-out couch that was like a full size, and then a bunk above it. And that one has an actual TV and a desk in there and a little small closet. That's where our son sleeps. We took the couch out and put in like little cubes for storage. And then above that is a loft area where some people use it for attic storage, just additional storage. But our daughter sleeps up there for her own kind of bedroom because they're both teeny tiny little people. So she can still sit up as long as she's on a carpet and not on her little mattress. So she can sit up in there. And what I did was I took a blackout curtain, kind of folded that in half to create it sewed in a small channel. And so now she can pull that and close it so that she has a little bit of privacy and she has her own room up there. And then there's full-size bathroom, which the shower was actually bigger than our house because we had one of those little corner showers, but it's like a full-size shower in there. And then at the end of the hallway is the master. We've got a queen size and a washer and dryer in there. Actually, it's not as bad as it sounds.
Yeah, it's almost
you get used to it.
A tiny home, I think a lot of people have an easier time wrapping their heads around a tiny home because it looks like a house instead of, an RV. People use those for camping, but no, RVs are quite comfortable. And sounds like you have kind of everything, everything you need.
Absolutely.
That's so cool. And I could talk about it forever and ever. We ours is a 33-foot motorhome because our big thing was, since we've only got the dogs and our dogs are getting older, was like, the fifth wheels. So for those who don't know, the fifth wheels are the type of trailer that like come up and over into a truck bed, like of a pickup truck. And they tend to have a little more headroom and feel a little bit more open. But that means every time we'd be driving around, we'd have to be cramming our 3 dogs into the cab. That is the drivers and passengers, what I mean? So we went for the motorhome, which we really like. It's fun, panoramic views when you drive, but oh man, we do think about a fifth wheel every once in a while because
our truck is a little bit of a clown car. Like, I'm not going to lie. Yeah. Because to pull it, because it's such a heavy trailer, because we were in a 38-foot trailer before, but to pull this one, we upgraded we're in a Ford F450, which is a dually, and it's an enormous, just monster of a vehicle. So in order to transfer everyone, so that the kids are in their seats, and then like the back seat is really, really wide.
Nice.
So you have the kids, and then the cats are in their two carriers stacked in the middle. So they just kind of sit in the middle, and then the dogs just sleep in the floor wells because they're old as well. They're 14, 15, and 16.
So they're just
so they sleep all day.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's kind of like a clown car when you stop. It's like people and animals are flying out everywhere.
The Mary Poppins bag of trucks.
Yes,
I love that.
It works.
But that is what a fun adventure. And how cool for your family and your kids. Like, how long do you anticipate that you'll keep doing it?
Well, we sold the house. So we sold our house in February. So that was kind of like that last like Band-Aid, rip the Band-Aid off. Can't really go back to that. The plan is, I guess, for about 3 years, kind of 3 years minimum, I think, to really, because of the investment and having to move back and forth. So probably 3 years, because this year we went from North Carolina all the way out as far west as Idaho.
Okay.
Because we wanted to get to Glacier. And that was kind of our big kind of like bucket this year, was to get to Glacier. So we're now headed back. So we're in Georgia right now. We'll be in Orlando on Monday, so we can winter in Florida again, which is pretty nice. And so next year, my sister-in-law gets married in February. So we have to go back to Wilmington, North Carolina. So in February for that. So we're going to do the East Coast for next year. So we'll go all the way up to Maine and hit Acadia.
Yep.
Because we're trying to get kind of the bigger national parks, because part of the homeschool stuff with our kids is there's a junior ranger program. So it's a little bit like, it's kind of like a Boy Scout, Girl Scout type thing, except for it's with all the national parks. So when you go to a national park, they give you a booklet, and depending on your age is how many activities. But what it does, it teaches you the history of the national park. It gives you a lot of that science, flora, fauna sort of thing there at the park. It's a lot of activities like questions. Some of it's easier word searches, those sorts of things. But it's a really good like hour long really to fill it out, because there's a lot of activities. And at the end, once you do that, you meet one of the park rangers. They do their pledge to become a junior ranger, and they get badges. So they have
I'm obsessed. Do they have this for adults?
Adults can do it too now. They will let you just ask them for a junior ranger booklet. You can fill it out, and they're like little wooden badges. They're so cute, and they just pin on their little vest, and it is adorable.
Oh my gosh, what a cool thing. Okay, I'm gonna make sure Spencer listens to this episode, because we don't have kids yet, but we've often talked about how, even years ago, before COVID and before we had an RV, we always talked about how, for us, we always feel like homeschooling would make a lot of sense. Like Spencer is a computer coder and would really want to be able to teach our kids that. And we're very entrepreneurial and feel that like that is often squelched out, in public school, just with following all the standards and guidelines and
Absolutely.
And so just what you're describing sounds like, if I had that when I was a kid, it would have just been a dream.
It's amazing
through hands-on, like real life stuff. Like, let's not just learn math concepts. Let's learn about how math is used in the real world, or let's not learn science concepts, but go to stinking national parks.
Yeah, because we do have a curriculum for them. We use we use the Gather Round curriculum, and it's a monthly thematic, so it's something they can do together. And that's what my husband is doing, because I'm still working full time, because my work never stopped. So I'm just kind of going through. But he's doing all of the homeschooling portion of it, and the driving and that sort of thing. So he's kind of a stay-at-home parent now, I guess, if even though we're both at home. He's doing all that fun stuff. And so some days they'll do the curriculum straight from the book, and then some days they'll do like the park, or they'll do things like, for instance, we stayed at a Harvest Host last night, which is another kind of camping program across the country where you pay a membership fee, and you stay for free at farms or museums or wineries. It's just organizations that have large open fields that invite campers to come in and stay overnight just for free.
That is really cool.
They don't have hookups or anything, but the one we stayed at last night was amazing. And we've done this a lot of different places. We stayed at a museum once. And part of the idea is that even though you're staying for free, you're still going to go and patronize whatever they have.
Sure.
Whether you go to their gift store, buy some things that they make, or you go to the museum. There are golf courses now that will offer it to let you do this. So you go play around a golf. So we've done
That's
a
a
Montana.
really cool idea.
It's amazing. We did a Montana Alpaca Farm. And she sells her own yarn. So
Whoa.
my husband keeps joking now, like, especially after this one, we said it last night. He's like, we can't do this anymore because our most expensive stops are always the Harvest Host.
Isn't that
Because
interesting?
the alpaca farm was awesome because, on top of cross stitching, I also like to do knitting and crocheting as well. So, I got to walk into her yarn store there on the farm, and I'm like, we have literally met these alpacas.
Yeah.
And their yarn is now sitting in front of me, and how do I not buy this yarn?
Oh my
Like,
gosh. No, that
you
is
have
so
to.
cool
You
to
have
like
to.
see the full process, meet the person
Mhm.
who takes care of the llamas and then makes the yarn. I mean, it's like just like a circle of life of
It was amazing. So I got
knitting
to
and
do
oh
yeah, so I got
wow.
to do that, and that I actually just made one of our Christmas gifts to my soon-to-be brother-in-law. Is going to be made from that yarn from
Cool.
the
That is
travels, and
so
then
neat.
so that was really cool. And then the place went last night was also a farm, but it was a place called White Oak Pastures, and essentially it's this farm that has grown to encompass basically the entire town, but they do what's called regenerative farming. And so part of the stay there was to take their tour this morning, and I wasn't able to go because of work, but my husband took the kids, and they got to meet all of they have a maker's shop because
Oh,
they have a whole general store and
neat.
restaurant where they sell all of their leather goods. So they take, they process and do organic and regenerative farming butchering on site as well.
Oh,
So
interesting.
they process like 200 animals a day, I think they said. This farm
Whoa.
is enormous. But they have a lot of, like, they make their tallow candles and soap, and they sell that in the store. They do a lot of leather goods, like they do, like napkin rings and purses and, bathroom kits. And like,
Wow.
it's just a really neat place. And then, of course, when they sell all of their beef, they used to supply all of the Whole Foods meat for
Whoa.
like Georgia and Alabama and Florida, maybe. But when
Interesting.
COVID hit, they changed to direct to consumer. They
Mm.
kind of pivoted to now that they can ship directly to consumers. So like their website, you can order all their food and send it. And they were like the
Wow.
absolute nicest people. When we pulled in, they parked us in a pasture, and just like a horse and cow pasture that where the animals are just loose in there. So when
Whoa.
we came back from dinner, and we pulled up to the camper, and the cows are just sitting there. I'm like,
Just like
hi.
right
Oh,
next to you.
mhm.
I
Oh
love
yeah,
it.
and they kept telling us there were horses in the field, and my 10-year-old daughter is obsessed with horses right now. And
Aw.
so she's like, "Where are they, Mom? Where are they?" I'm like, "They told us they were here. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, they'll probably walk up at some point." And so we figured, I'm like, "Oh, it's a nice night. We'll sit outside." Right?
Yeah.
So you find a clear piece of pasture, and we sit outside, and then all of a sudden these cows come running around the side of the camper. And I'm like, I'm not messing with these random bovine in the middle of the night. So I get up, and of course, my husband, who grew up on farms, is like laughing at me. He's like, "Oh, they're cows. It's no big deal." And I'm
Right.
like, I was like, I understand that, but I don't know these cows.
Right, right.
So, like, it's different. It's
Mm-hmm.
different. So I'm like, fine. So I sit back down, and no joke, I kid you not, this black cow just starts walking. They're like Dexter, so they're mini Angus. So they're not
Oh,
enormous, but they're big enough.
but that's hefty,
So
yeah.
exactly. So he just starts kind of walking towards me, and I'm like, minding my own business, but I'm not gonna engage because,
Right.
like, I'm just sitting here. And he comes over, and he's just kind of looking at me. So I lean forward in my chair, and the next thing I know, something starts hitting me in the back of the head. And so I like jump up because this cow is like trying to eat my head. I'm
Oh
like,
my
what is
gosh.
happening? Oh my gosh. And so he, of course, Drew's laughing his butt off at me, and like thinks it's just he actually ended up getting a picture of me leaning forward, and this cow is like right here in the back of my
Oh
head.
my gosh.
But it was enough, I guess, to get interest of the horses, because we turned
Oh.
around, and next thing you know, all of the horses come walking over, and they came
Wow.
right up, like not even 5 feet from the camper door. Are these just 7 horses, like huge black stallion?
Oh
There were 2 white ones,
my
like they were
gosh.
gorgeous, and our kids were beside themselves
Were they friendly?
because,
Like you could
oh,
touch
absolutely,
them and
yes. Because
oh,
this is the one that they
that's
use for,
magical.
oh yeah, because it's the ones they use for their trail rides, and the kids had just gotten to do a pony ride, right at dinner. They were leading them
Mm.
around like the yard on a horse that the daughter of the farm had barrel raced for years.
Oh wow.
So that was one of the horses they had put back out in the pasture to kind of graze at night. And so he came up as well. And they're like, "Oh, this is the
Oh,
horse we just rode this one."
yeah, that's
So they got,
great.
they were,
They were
we
already
had to double
friends.
check to make sure my daughter was in the truck when we left this morning. She was like, "Can we
She's
stay?"
going to go live among the horses now.
She might. I was like, "No, honey, one night. That's the limit. Like we have to leave."
That's so special. And like, you don't get that at an RV park.
You don't. And what's so crazy about it is because when we think about the things that the kids are not going to experience, even at home, is, I grew up in the mountains of Virginia, so we didn't really do the beach a lot. I'm not really a beach person. And the kids really love the beach because that's all they've ever known.
Sure.
But there are things that like I took for granted. So when we first started, this whole ordeal, we stayed in Georgia on the way through last year. We were at a Corps of Engineering park on on Lake Seminole, which is a reservoir in Georgia. And the way that it's set up is that these really huge sites. And our site was backed up to this giant hill behind us. And so, I'm working and I'm hearing the kids like running around. They're screaming, but it's like play screaming because they're having fun. And I'm like, what is all those? Mom, mom, mom. I'm like, what is going on? So I go out the window and they're just rolling down these hills. They're just racing each other to the top of the hill. They hit the ground to lay flat and they just roll down. Like, this is the greatest thing they've ever done in their entire life. And I looked at my husband, I thought, and told him, I said, this is why we're doing this.
Yeah.
They had never seen a real hill before.
Oh, I'm getting chills.
Because where we were was so flat, like we're the ocean. And it's, there were some, smaller hills and stuff. We kind of drive up them.
Right.
But they've never lived in a place that had a legit hill on it. And so that was the first time that they had ever been able to roll down a hill. And it was something that I never would have imagined that they didn't do.
Yeah.
Because and I'm so impressed with
your kids seem to be so adventurous. They seem very adventurous and very playful. And that just seems like
such not start that way.
Oh, really? I was going to say, it seems like such a nice fit.
Yeah. Oh, they did not start that way.
Really?
At all. Mm-hmm. They were super, super shy. They played with like the neighbor kids. That was it. They would not approach other kids at all until our very first stop. When we left Wilmington in January, we knew we were going straight to Florida, because there's a park in Florida where a huge group of full-time families congregate every year. Because full-time families is actually a group that we belong to, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a group of full-time families. But there's a place called TTO, or it's the Thousand Trails Orlando RV Resort. And it's got something like 1,000 sites, but it's just hundreds of families that are there for the winter. And there are sections that are just full-timing families with kids.
Wow.
So we're going to start there. I said, this is either the best idea ever because they get to, see that, hey, there's kids on the road.
Yeah.
Or this is the worst idea because we're setting them up because this won't happen again.
Right.
Because we have been very fortunate and we've met one or two kids at almost every campground. So they've been good about that. But when we first got to Orlando, though, they would not speak to anyone. They would sit in the camper and there'd be 30 kids in the field and they would just watch them through the window and would not go play. And we're like, guys, go play. That's literally why we are here. Until one day my husband finally just said, come with me, and takes them by their hand, walks them over to these kids and said, this is David and Alexis. Can they play with you? And the other kids were like, yeah. And he goes, okay. And he just left them. Just walked off.
Bye, kids.
And they just heard all, they're like, Mom, what? I was like, I can't help you. I play. And ever since then, they've gotten now to the point that they stalk other campers coming in because they're like, oh, they have kids' bikes. Mom, they have kids. So they know to look for the bikes on the back and they will watch until they park. I'm like, at least let them park first. But as soon as they park, they are out the door. And it's been a huge, just for everyone getting to, being involved in the stuff that we get to see. It's been really cool.
I'm just beaming. That is so great. And congratulations. I'm glad it sounds like it's working out almost maybe even better than you had hoped. But how cool that, not only these great adventures, but meeting people. And, when you're part of something like that, like you said, that full-time families, you've got now a sense of community. And this is one thing, when we got our RV, we kept hearing about it, but it really takes getting into it, where like RV people or people who, do this, are very friendly. And like, there's
Oh,
just a culture of friendliness
absolutely.
and helpfulness that actually early on, we often would say really reminds us of the Stitch People community, where it's just people
They're
who are just
absolutely.
willing to share what they have and give their ideas and offer a helping hand. And, you know, everybody, you post a question in some of these forums or Facebook groups or whatever, and people just have an answer for you or have suggestions, links,
Absolutely.
YouTube videos. It's really kind of similar, just like on a massive, like, trucks and trailers scale, but yeah, just a really supportive group of people.
Oh, they absolutely are, and it's one of those things. I don't think that we've ever, because we've hit 20 states this year. I'm trying to think, 20 states and probably like
Wow.
70 stops this year alone, and I can't think of a single place where we've ever found someone that wasn't friendly. I mean,
Wow.
every single person that we've come across, everyone's always really talkative. You know, I mean, some people are just kind of, they do their own thing, but they're not rude or anything. They just do their own thing. But you're always going to find someone who will just talk to you for forever, especially once they find out that you full time. Then they're like, oh, they have all
just like me.
questions.
I'm like, ooh,
they have all of these questions, and it's amazing. So I mean, everywhere, especially like families with kids. Like we were in Texas for a couple of months. And I accidentally had hit my husband's truck on something.
ooh.
And so he had to come out and meet me, which when you only have one vehicle, we had to figure out how to
that's
do that
tricky.
because he had the kids. And so he hopped on the campground chat through Full Nine's family and said, hey, can someone take me? And someone immediately was like, yeah, sure.
That's
And so
so
he and the
nice.
kids hopped into another family's van and they went and dropped him off.
Oh,
So they were like, sure, why not? Because
yeah,
they, you know,
'cause
they
you're there,
understand.
and yep.
Exactly. They
When
get
you
it.
break
They absolutely get
down, and it's kind of that culture of you help other people because you know that you're going to need it someday.
Yes.
Like it's
Oh, yeah.
inevitable. It's inevitable that something's going to break down someday, or you're going to need help
Oh,
with something
absolutely.
someday, you know? So yeah.
Thanksgiving is a potluck. We've already got it set up. Doing it
That's
potluck
going
with
to be
all the
down
other
in
families.
Orlando.
Yep.
Cool. And you're going to the same place you went in January.
Last year. Yes.
Oh,
Yep.
great. So it'll
So
be
it's
a big
almost full
reunion.
circle. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it really turns out to be, is that everybody kind of congregates back into the same places in the winter time. So you get to see all these people you met last year again that you kind of keep
Aw.
up with during the year, and you see their
Totally.
travels and stuff. And it's just, yeah, it's kind of like coming home again, because you're like, oh, I know these people.
Yeah, and it's a familiar campground and familiar faces. That is so great. Well, okay, I'm going to bring this back now, finally, after I'm just getting all my excitement out. You mentioned the llama farm, the Alpaca Farm. Oh,
Sorry,
you
this
have
is
a
Maury.
friend.
This is Maury. She's one of the.
She's
lions, I guess.
pretty. We've got a kitty on the screen. Green eyes, is that right?
Yes, I think we think she's a
Gorgeous.
Russian blue.
Ooh.
With green eyes. So she's solid gray, kind of green eyes.
She's beautiful. So it sounds like you're a very crafty person.
Yes.
And
well, I try.
luckily,
I dabble.
Yes, that's right. Cross stitching is a very portable thing. So it
Yes.
sounds like kind of a perfect on the go, you know, full-time RVing lifestyle kind of a craft to do. Has that been true for you?
Absolutely. That was the number one thing that I was concerned about when we decided to do this, is because RVs are small.
Yeah.
And space is limited.
Mm-hmm.
And even though you have the space, the weight of things is also a problem that some people don't consider, is that you have to also be cognizant about how much you're carrying, not how big it is. So I couldn't bring like my sewing machine with me, because I like to do quilting and I also had a Cricut. I couldn't bring any of that with me,
Right.
because I just didn't have anywhere to put it.
Yep.
And, you know, I had to make weight basically.
Yeah.
So cross stitching was, you know, Stitch People in particular was amazing, because I had found it kind of right before we left. And I'd done cross stitching kind of on and off over the years. And I also like to kind of do yarn and stuff. So when we packed up and, you know, when we were going through everything, I had a whole fabric closet that I had to part with, because it was, you know, one of those things that you just kind of collect as you go along the way. And
yeah, I have a lot of friends who are quilters, and it's like, it's usually both like this strange combination of a huge point of pride and excitement and creative inspiration, and also like a little bit embarrassed that like, oh, I have so much fabric and I haven't used it yet.
Oh, well, yeah, because my husband was like, you're not taking that with you. I'm like, but you know how long it's taken me to build this collection?
Yeah.
He's like, would you ever use it? I was like, it doesn't matter. I have it.
Right. You have options.
I do.
And you like them all. That's the other thing, is because sometimes it's hard to find a fabric with a pattern that you really, really like that you would use. And so you snag it and you have it to use when you need it.
Exactly. And that was the problem I had. So I ended up donating that to a local teenager who was making masks during COVID, and they were selling the proceeds from the masks that they were selling were going to local charities there in town.
That's nice.
And so I called her mom up and I was like, so would she want like 4 trash bags full of fabric? That's what I got.
Yeah.
So she took all of that. I pared down all of my yarn stuff, to like my nicest yarn. So I didn't take any like Red Heart with me or anything like that. I took, stuff that was like really high dollar stuff that I wasn't going to just toss. I kept that. But then I got to keep all of my cross stitch stuff because it was, something that's much more portable. Yeah. It's easier to find as well. So that was the other thing, is not only do you have to worry about weight, it's also availability. Right. If I'm going to do a project on the road, can I get the supplies? Because when you're traveling full time, we have a mailing address that we use for like bills and things like that. My mother-in-law still lives in town where we left, so she gets all the kind of important things and can forward it on to us. But I can't really order like special order projects necessarily, because where am I going to send it? I don't. Most places we try to stay at least a week. A week ahead of time.
So at very least, you could send it like to the main office or something.
Yes. So sometimes, cool. So sometimes I can get packages. So like when we're going to be in Orlando for 3 full weeks, which is amazing to sit one place. Yeah. But it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes you have to kind of hop based on availability, because that's the other problem. The kind of downside of COVID is that RVs in general has really become so popular that it's becoming hard. Sorry, the rest of my family just came home, all good. So they're coming in if you hear them. But they have now made it harder to find campsites a lot of places. So sometimes you take what you can get, basically. So the nice thing about doing with the cross stitch projects is anytime we're even remotely close to a big city, I can run to a Joann's or a Michael's and get the supplies that I need. Or hopefully in a pinch, I can go to Walmart, and if it's kind of a more generic color, I can do that. Or I just they've got plan a basic accordingly. And it's easier to do that than it would be if I had to special order, yarn or whatever, to do that. So that's been really handy to be able to do that going forward. And that, because it's also nice for when you're making specialized gifts. One of the fun things, and I don't know if you've seen in the actual group, the little ornaments, the Stitch People ornaments. Let me see. I can pull out a finished one. It was Canadian Stitchery is the Etsy page, and she's in the group. And I know that she reminded me her name, and it's totally, I'm blanking on it. I apologize, but that is her name on Etsy. It's Canadian Stitchery. Okay. And they look like little wooden sweaters. The wooden sweaters. Like, is this not the cutest thing you've ever?
It's so fun. Yeah, it's a wooden, like a laser cut wooden cutout of a sweater, and you can. There's holes, like a grid of holes where, like, the chest to torso part of the sweater where you can stitch whatever you want. Big enough.
Yeah, and she has like pre-patterned things, like there's a little T-Rex with a Santa hat that you can get or things like that. But they're the perfect size for the Stitch People. So what I ended up doing was, it's big enough that you can do a head and a torso. You can't center it exactly. It's one row short of being able to center. Darn. So I'm like, my OCD tendencies, it kills me.
I sympathize with that. Centering is always such a thing.
She did call it an ugly sweater. So I'm like, okay, so it has to be off center anyway, because it's supposed to be an ugly sweater. So I can live with it. So I did those because they kind of double as gift tags as well for people. So they can be gift tags or actual ornaments. So it was something that I could do up quickly as presents, and I can do that, with me, because that's one thing I always love to do, handmade gifts for holidays. And when we decided to move, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah, if you don't have your sewing machine or your Cricut or all your tools. Yeah,
exactly. And so I was able to do that. And then patterns I can actually make myself, which is nice, or I can find them, or I can find them if I want to do more. And one of the other really cool things is that once we got out west to some of the bigger national parks like Glacier and Yellowstone, they actually sell cross stitch patterns of the parks themselves. So we have those.
That's
I did
neat.
pick up a couple of those. So I do have like Old Faithful. I think I have the Old Faithful geyser, and then there's one for the Grand Tetons, and
Wow.
there's a lot of animals. So I've got bison and elk and things like that. So those patterns were actually available in the gift shops there
That
at
is so
the
cool.
national parks.
Are they big? Are they big
Devil's Tower
patterns?
was the one, which is some of them. So I think um, they are generally speaking probably a 6 inch hoop, I want to say.
Okay.
So some of them are 6 inch hoops, some of them, or you can get the like really big. I think the Yellowstone one is really big. I
Okay.
haven't done that one yet. So I would think it's probably at least an 8 inch
Okay,
hoop.
cool.
Like it's a
Because yeah, I could see
bigger
those
kind of
being like pretty
size.
expansive if, just depending on the detail and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And they're really pretty because they're, like they're scenes from the park themselves. So it's all very
Yeah.
nature based, which is
I
really cool.
love
So I've been
that.
able to find those along the way.
And
And
not only
I
that, but
did
places that you visited and now you have memories and they're meaningful
exactly.
to you.
Exactly. So when I eventually get around to doing them, they'll hang in the camper.
Cool.
But one of the things that, we're trying as we try to track our journey, we do have an Instagram account where we post the pictures of our journey and things like that so that we can look back on it. But there's also a project called the temperature tree, and I've
Hmm.
seen them done as like temperature scarves for knitting, where you do a row is whatever the temperature is that day where
Oh,
you
cool.
are, you represent that with a color. And so I've seen like basically a striped scarf. And so you can see how the temperature varies throughout the year.
That is such
But
a
one
fun
of
idea.
the projects that it really is, it's neat. It's just, so it's a visual representation of
Right.
where
It's
you
like a
are.
little wearable
So I
journal.
thought, well, wouldn't it be fun? Exactly. But I came across one called that was a tree. So I said, wouldn't it be fun if I did it as the visual representation of our first year out on the road is of the tree, because it's a cross stitched tree. And this tree is
Yeah.
enormous. It's going to be I mean, at least not an 8 by 10, whatever the next size up is, 11 by 13 or something.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Wow. That is
So
big.
once it's done, every month gets its own branch. And so each leaf is color coded based on a 3 to 5 degree temperature change.
Wow.
So where we have traveled all over the country, we started in Florida, went all the way out to Montana, which you would think would be cold because it was called Glacier. It was not. That was our biggest disappointment. We were there when the heat dome went through Seattle, so
Oof.
it was definitely quite warm still. But you get this really interesting color change as the leaves kind of go around the tree. So I won't be done at the end of the year because I am behind. I will admit.
Oh, I don't blame you. Something that
having a
big.
crafting hobby, and there are two types of crafting hobbies. There are doing the actual craft, and then there's having the crafting projects and supplies. And I feel like those are two totally separate things.
That is
I
so
enjoy
true.
both. So
Yep.
I am
Me too.
I am halfway
Guilty.
through with I'm halfway through the tree. I have all of my stuff. I have, it's because I keep having to go back and look at our trip planner to say, okay, where were we this week? And then I have,
Right.
mark down the temperatures, because it's based on whatever the high is for that day.
Sure.
Yeah, it's the average. It averages it out so that you can see. So I will finish it eventually. It's about halfway
Yeah.
done now, even though we're in November. So I'll get there. But
Yeah. When you do, make
it's
sure to
just, I
post
just
a
thought it
photo
was
on
going to be
the
such a neat
Stitch
kind of
People page.
visual.
Yeah. Like what a cool
Yeah,
way to
absolutely.
commemorate your first year on the road.
Because it's something that I enjoy doing. It's something that I made, and
Right.
it's a great visual representation to say this is where we've been over the year. So I'm really excited about that. And then one of the other things, the Stitch People community, which you're saying about how people are really supportive.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody had posted about doing a silhouette picture, and so ended up doing one of those for my sister-in-law when she got engaged. So I took her proposal picture that she had sent us, and I was able to recreate that on a canvas and did it as an outline based on a lot of the other Stitch people who had talked about that in the Facebook forum. So it's always neat to see how many different crazy ideas come through there, because it's more than just, it really is a community, which has been really fun. And so
Right.
being able to see the different ways that it can apply has been amazing.
I love that. And how cool that you can be part of not only like the full-time RVing community, which I'm sure has a huge, online group presence, but that you have other communities to be able to maintain kind of your interests and your connections while you're on the go, while you don't have like a set
Absolutely.
neighborhood or you're not around your family all the time, that you can still have kind of support and interaction no matter where you are.
Absolutely.
There's plus
And it's
sides
something
to
that
social media.
And cross stitching is something I can do in the car while we're driving. If I'm not working, I can actually take it with me. Because it's not only is it easy to carry around when you travel, but it's also, it sits in my lap.
Yeah,
so
right.
I can do that on those days that are really
Easy
long,
tuck it in a bag if you need to put it away for a minute, or
Exactly.
it's what I've always appreciated, that cross stitching is relatively easy to hit pause on. Like if somebody,
Exactly.
if dog's barking, you got to make dinner or whatever, it's easy to pick it back up and quickly reorient yourself. Okay, where was I? Oh yeah, okay, here I go. It's just match the pattern. That's it.
Absolutely.
Right.
Because I am so bad about, I will frog a project if I'm like knitting or crocheting. I will rip out hours of work because I get distracted or whatever, and it gets so frustrating. I'm like, oh, I just lost the last 2 hours.
Yeah.
But that's the nice thing about doing, with the cross stitching, is that you have smaller sections where if you mess one up, I can just pull that section out and it's not such a big deal. But it's easier, like you said, to stop and go do something else and then be able to come back to it, and you don't have that same problem.
Right. You don't super lose track.
Exactly. You don't lose 3 days worth of work because you're like, oh, I screwed this whole thing up. What do I do? Yeah, like, what do I do? I've done that before. I've ripped like a foot of a scarf out before because I like read something wrong, and I'm like, oh, because it's one of the things where like if somebody else would never notice, I'm sure, but like I notice.
Yes.
I know it's there.
Yep.
So when I see it, I'm like, I know. I'm always going to see it. Yep. I'm always going to see it. So
I love that. Yeah. Well, you have such a great story to tell, and it has been so fun to get to know you and what you're up to and why, and your fun family and crafting and working and living life on the go. That is so, so cool. In our last couple minutes, what I like to do is give you a quick rapid fire of just kind of some of your favorite things. So I'm just going to throw some questions at you. Give me your gut reaction, and hopefully,
no pressure.
I know,
no
right?
Pressure.
And you might have some more interesting answers based on having 70 different locations to live this year. So let's start with, do you have a favorite national park?
Probably between Glacier or Craters of the Moon.
Whoa, that is so cool. I mean, those are two that you don't often hear. It's always like Yellowstone. That's great.
Yellowstone's nice, but it's mostly driving.
I see. Have you done the Utah ones yet, by the way?
We have not. Utah is probably going to be in a year and a half.
Awesome.
So we haven't made it. That's
it
on our
is
list.
Like otherworldly down there. They always anything that takes place
Arches
in Mars,
and Zion
they
and
shoot
Bryce
in Utah.
are all on our list.
Cool. Oh, you're gonna love it. Do you have a favorite meal to eat while you're on the road?
Oh, I have one that we eat most often. We eat a lot. Obviously a lot of pizza because that's easy.
So easy
on
and
drive
delicious.
Day, we usually tend to eat out on drive days or order in for that. But we also have found a super easy meal to make. Is if you go to like big box store, like Costco or Sam's, they usually have microwavable barbecue that you just toss in the microwave for like 5 to 7 minutes, and we put that on tortillas and do like shredded Parmesan and do just like pork tacos, and you got dinner in 10 minutes. The kids actually eat it, and it's super easy when you've got 100 other things going on.
Yeah. Hey, there you go. I love a good tip. Do you have a favorite treat?
Ooh, favorite treat. We try to do local stuff where we can.
Love that.
We did a Coca-Cola cake from the farm we stayed at last night because I love a Coca-Cola cake. And you can't, we went to got a butter cake when going through Mississippi. So if there's some sort of regional dessert, I'm gonna probably go for it.
I love that.
I've also tried to.
Great.
I'm also a big coffee person.
Ooh, so that's tell me everything.
I'm not a coffee snob. I just like to drink a lot of coffee. And so I've tried to keep all of my coffee local. So wherever we've
neat.
been, I have a Keurig because I'm the only person who drinks it, but I have the fill your own K cup.
Okay.
So
That's
I
a neat thing.
have been,
I didn't know that existed. I love that.
oh yeah, you can get them from Amazon. I think they sell them in Walmart now, but so the coffee that I drink is all locally ground wherever we've been.
Wow.
So I found
Fun.
some in Wyoming that was roasted by monks in Wyoming,
Cool.
which was it's really interesting there. The one I
Yeah.
got now, we just got from Auburn, Alabama this week. And I always, when I run out, I find whatever the local coffee shop is and I go grab their coffee.
I love that. And that's such a great way to have something like that you like while you're on the road. It's always something to look for. It gives you a little bit of direction and purpose of like, oh, well, we're in a new town. What do I do now? Oh, you always know you're going to go find a local coffee shop, get some local coffee. And that's always going to be a really great way to kind of like get into town and look around and see things. I think that's kind of brilliant.
Absolutely. Because they also typically have pastries attached. So my kids get cookies.
It's a win-win.
They love it. The little cupcakes.
I love that. I love that. Well, Summer, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you for chatting. I could talk about traveling and RVing and all this stuff forever and ever. I think it is so fascinating and so interesting to think about doing life a little bit differently and a little more uniquely and in a way that's a little bit more intentional and all of the really cool things that can result from that. And it sounds like you guys are just doing a great job of it. So
Absolutely.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And if anybody in the group ever wants to reach out and shoot me a message, I am happy to talk their ear off too.
I love that. See the RV people sharing and caring. It's the best.
That's right.
So what do you think? Are you ready to get an RV or a trailer and go get out on the road and go travel somewhere, see somewhere new, go take a hike or visit a national park? I swear I'm going to do it tomorrow. I'm so ready. I love Summer's story, and it seems like she and her family are just doing so great. It makes me so glad, and we are so grateful she's a part of the Stitch People community. And we're so grateful you're a part of the Stitch People community. Thank you so much for listening to today's Stitch People podcast episode and for enjoying these conversations with Stitch People like you. If you have a moment, we would so appreciate if you could take a second, subscribe to the podcast if you haven't, leave us a rating and review. It really helps us, and it'll help us also shine all the cross-stitchy, crafty, creative, inspiring goodness into the world. You can check out everything Stitch People has to offer. We've got cross-stitch patterns, cross-stitch books, merch, and so much more at stitchpeople.com. Seriously, so much more. If you are looking for a pattern, we probably have it. So check out stitchpeople.com and give it a search, whatever it is you're looking for. And be sure to connect with us on Instagram, Pinterest, and Facebook. We love to see your posts, your works in progress, see what you're up to, and connect with you there. Lastly, I want to thank all of you in the Stitch People community for your support, not only of us, but your positive and cooperative encouragement of one another. That was such a huge theme of the episode today with Summer, of just people being helpful and kind and invested in helping each other and lifting one another up. It's something I feel so passionately about, and we see it in the Stitch People community all the time. So thank you for that. I'd also like to thank the incredible Stitch People team for making all the magic happen behind the scenes. Our fully licensed jazzy tunage was created by Jonathan Boyle, and our audio engineer, sound designer, magnificent, wonderful human is Brandon Yost. Have a wonderful day, my friends, and happy stitching. The Stitch People podcast is a production of Beanski LLC and Stitch People. Copyright 2022, all rights reserved.